So the last room on our preview for the spring practices coming up is the DB area, right? Now, you typically would break that up from corners and safeties, two separate rooms, but I'm going to combine them together because there's going to be a lot of overlap between the two. So Coach Jay Valai as well as Coach Brendan Hall's got a lot of players that may go back and forth. And man, the young players are really going to be fighting to get themselves on the field. So we're going to dive into that and talk about which players we think is going to start, who's going to stand out from the corner as well as the safety. But before we do that, welcome to Unfair Sports. I'm your host, Jay. Thank y'all for pulling up to the channel. If you like this series on the Sooner Review, please hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe and share. Why? Because sharing is caring. And this series is presented by our partners over at Aura, where they're protecting your data from data brokers in the battle against all of these spam calls we're receiving. So let's talk about Aura real quick, hear from them, and then we're going to dive into each room, start with the corners, go into the safeties, talk about who we got coming back, who we're losing, and what it looks like as far as starts go. Let's talk about all of your personal information all over the interwebs. Y'all know about that, right? Have you been getting a ton of spam calls and text messages as of late and trying to figure out why? I know I have. Well, most likely these data brokers out there have sold your information to scammers and spammers and anybody that would see value in your information. Yeah, it kind of makes you feel a little bit uneasy. I know when I did a search of my information, I saw my address, email, all kinds of stuff that had me a little nervous. Not gonna lie. That's why I've been leveraging Aura, our partner and sponsor for this video. Aura can identify data brokers exposing your information on the internet and submit opt-out requests on your behalf. Brokers are legally required to remove your information if you ask them to, but it's so difficult to get your information off of the internet. They do that by design, though. Aura also does so much more to protect you and your family. It's really easy to set up, and you don't have to download several different apps to get things like parental controls, antivirus, VPN, password management, identity theft insurance, and more. You get everything at one affordable price. Let Aura do all the heavy lifting of protecting you in this big world of the internet like I have. I've been leveraging it for the last few months, and man, the alerts I get on how it's been opting me out of stuff has made me breathe a sigh of relief. You should check it out as well. That way you can focus on what's more important, like college football, recruiting, anything else but your information on the internet. Check out my site, www.aura.com/unfairsports. You can check out the link in the description below or the QR code here on the screen. Let them know that I sent you. Now, Coach Valai's got some goodness coming here, right? Because next season, bringing back veteran Woody Washington along with Kendall Doby and Robert Spears-Jennings, and Kenai Walker, you got four dudes that played a lot last season and over the last 2 years, to be absolutely honest, because Kenai was a transfer in when this regime started. You're seeing a lot of players make that return with a lot of snaps, understanding the scheme and being able to play. Now, the big thing with the corner room we've seen is this DB room for Valai is that we deal with a lot of nicked up injuries, right? Gentry Williams has shoulder surgery, so we won't be seeing him probably in spring practice. I think BV mentioned that there's a chance either for spring or summer, but I'm not going to bank on it. Let that man rest, get his shoulder right. We don't need him hitting nobody until we're actually hitting the field in the fall. But you got that Gentry Williams who broke out last season. Once he got that starting spot, he didn't want to let it go except for when injuries took play. Woody Washington solidifies your other side. So you got those two running things at the corner position with their two deeps of, you saw some Makari Vickers. You saw a little bit Kendall Doby jumped over there, him and Kenai Walker. But Kendall, honestly, to me was a lot better at the cheetah role when he was playing quote unquote safety. Man. And as he mentioned when he came on the show and talked, he talked about how he loves getting sacks more than interceptions. And he was getting some hits on the quarterback in that Arizona game and in a few others. Actually, he was against West Virginia. He got that nice set of hits on Garrett Green. So Kendall Doby coming back, which he could play corner, but he's also really good at the cheetah role. And we'll talk about him more with the safeties. But that DB, that corner room looks good. Then you bring in transfers, Des Malone to help to bolster it because you lost a player. You lost Key Lawrence, who's on the safety room. We'll talk about him a little bit more later. But bringing that veteran with Des Malone to kind of help with what Oklahoma is trying to get going. And then you bring in Jocelyn Malaska, played at Utah, former Bethany, Oklahoma high school kid who Venables mentioned that he looked really good in practices, and he's got his opportunity now. There's an article I think I saw either on OU Insider or 247. I think it's OU Insider. Go check it out. Yeah, it was Parker Thune that did it. Check it out. Great article on Malaska and his return back home. Got a little brother that Oklahoma's also in the running for. So, of course, we'll be pushing that narrative. But the snap, we're bringing back like about 340 tackles, right? Which is huge on that whole secondary. Billy, we'll get them in a minute. Kendall Doby, Woody Washington, both over 48 tackles for the season. Kendall Doby with his 2 sacks as he wrapped it up. 2 interceptions for Kendall. Gentry Williams was out there living on the island, 3 interceptions. It's funny because you started to see at the beginning of the season that teams would test Gentry more than they would Woody because Woody's a little bit more proven, a little bit more veteran. And then Gentry started to make them pay, and so they started going back at Woody. That's why you started to see an increase in passes towards Woody later in the season, especially when Gentry was playing, because teams was like, okay, he's kicking our butt. And so when I see this going into the spring, of course, Gentry's not going to play, but Woody was talking about, I think he was on Sooner Scoop with Joe Castiglione Jr., and he talked about how they're moving him around into safety as well. So that's where that blend is coming in. You're going to see him probably play a little bit of safety, maybe even a little cheetah and some passing downs. I think Zach Alley is going to be leveraging a 3 safety setup on a regular basis, especially with the way the cheetah's going to be going. I can totally see that going out. 6 defensive backs on the field on a regular basis because we got guys that are sizey enough, right? I think Gentry was at the 200 range last year. He's like 180 now, but it's because of weight. But Woody's got some size, and Kendall Doby likes to hit. Yeah, I love what the secondary looks like. And then you bring in the young players, like Jacoby Johnson, who got an interception this year. He got his interception against TCU to really get his, break himself in. And then you got Makari Vickers. Seatbelt was actually putting some dudes in the lock, right? When he got going early in the season, a little suspect, but that's because he was young. But he was out there breaking up passes, man. You're like, oh, this is what we're going to get out of the cornerback position over the next couple of years. But still having Woody come back is huge for Oklahoma because having a veteran presence that can continue with the other vets, help groom the young players, because we're bringing in some additional young corners that is really going to help for what we're going to be doing next season. So I'm pretty excited at the DB position. Hop in the comments. Let me know your thoughts on this DB room, the corners, who you think is going to start. I'd love to hear from you all on that. But then we go into the safety spot. This is where Brendan Hall has been cooking, right? Because that safety room lost a lot more than you guys realize, right? When you look at the safety room, first off, Reggie Pearson Jr. is gone. Hate that we couldn't get him back for one more year, but he's out, right? Key Lawrence transfers. Day McCullough transfers because he's most likely not going to see the field. And so you got those guys. You got 2 guys that played a lot. One guy that was still a freshman working his way into the rotation, out the door. And so, but Robert Spears Jennings emerged as an elite safety when healthy. I mentioned health is one of our biggest problems there. But having him and Billy Bowman back, and then Peyton Bowen, the freshman phenom, oh gosh, that safety room is stacked. And as which I understood why Day decided to go ahead and hit the portal, because it's going to be hard to get out there, especially as Samuel Mosigo's kind of, working his way out into that cheetah role or even a little bit of safety. On top of him, Deshaun McCullough, and we got the waiver for Justin Harrington. So he's going to be returning. So you got these 6'4", 6'5", quote-unquote safeties playing cheetah in coverage. It's going to be a problem with trying to throw over them long wingspans, right? These dudes are out here like this. It's going to be tough to get the ball over their heads. And so when you look at everybody else in that room, so Billy coming back, you're probably going to see a lot of Billy, a lot of Peyton Bowen. I anticipate spring game starting with Billy Bowman and Robert Spears Jennings, right? And then you're going to have Peyton Bowen rotating with Billy Bowman, because I think Peyton's going to probably play more strong throughout his career. And I can see that. It makes sense. You know, he's your strong safety. He's more your hitter, and he can play the freestyle game, right? Robert Spears-Jennings shown how strong he is at the free spot and being around and knocking down passes. Yeah, I'm going to miss the hammer in Reggie Pearson and liking to hit people. But at the same time, I think that Robert Spears-Jennings is going to be something of a threat. And then Omasigo getting to rotate in there with the likes of Justin Harrington as well as Hassan McCullough at that cheetah. Gosh. But then you got to look even the freshman, right? I think Reggie Powers is going to replace Reggie Pearson as our hitter. And I think Reggie Powers is going to see some run, right? We've already seen how strong he is and how much everyone has raved about him. You know, when Colin Kennedy was on here, you know, last week, he talked about the player he talks about every time he talks about an incoming 24-karat player. It's always Reggie Powers. Reggie Powers is his favorite player coming in because he's the one that's like jumps off the screen even more than some of our linemen, right? He's a beast. And then you got Michael Bobanowski, who they're going to get his weight up, and he's going to be a threat at that cheetah role, right? The defense bringing back the number one production defense in the SEC. This is what Oklahoma's going to lean on next season. Jackson Arnold's going to do his thing, but we're going to lean heavily on this defense to make things happen. And that's what I anticipate. I anticipate this defense being one of the best ones in the country. We're on the trajectory of the Brent Venables Clemson road, moving up from the 50s, 60s, and 70s in efficiency ratings up into the 30s and 20s and 10s in some. And I think next season we'll see everything in the 10s and then the top 5s. We're on that route. And it's all because we're bringing back all of this production. We're bringing back so many players. And I talked about it defensive line-wise. Miguel Chavis pointed out we had over 4,200 snaps, which probably by the end of the season was 4,500 snaps of players that were freshmen, redshirt freshmen, and sophomore. So that defense last season was so young. You're going to see the maturity in live action going forward. So I'm excited about what this defense looks like. So looking at it, safety room, I'm going to tell you, this is my lineup on the secondary itself. You're going to have Woody and Gentry Williams. You're going to have Bowman and Robert Spears-Jennings. You're going to see some Peyton Bowen mixed in there. And then your cheetah is going to probably be Hassan McCullough to start with Justin Harrington right behind him, especially as he's getting back healthy. So that right there is your DB rooms. Hop in the comments. Let your boy know your thoughts. How y'all feeling about going into spring practices? Players get a week off for spring break, and then they come back, put them pads on for 3 weeks, and then we go right into spring football. I cannot wait for the spring game. I plan on being there. I'm working on some logistics now, but I plan on being in attendance. If you've made it this far, you like the content, and you like this series, hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. Also, share. Why? Because sharing is caring. I got this in a playlist. Share the playlist with your people so they can see the 2024 room review, early spring room review, because we'll have another one going into the summer as we talk about kind of, more insight on what's going down. So check out the playlist here. Check out another video here. We'll talk soon. Peace.